Hey guys, so this is another video in my series of vlogs just to record my journey in life coaching and what I've learned from it, what I'm continuing to learn in the process. So today I'd like to speak about my main reflections upon qualifying as a life coach. So as some of you know, May 2019 I qualified as a life coach. So just got me thinking in terms of what I've really learned from it and how I've developed. Um, I mean, it was just over a year ago when I first enrolled on the course, so quite surprising, sort of how much I've learned in that time. At the time, probably didn't really understand the process of life coaching. I understood that they made a big difference to people's lives, and people were able to achieve a lot more as a result of it. But I wasn't quite sure how it actually worked. So I'd say the main thing that really came as a surprise to me was that coaches don't give any advice because in society we are very much told that basically, or where it's implied that if you need help with something, you go to somebody who knows better than you. They then advise you, and then that's how you move forward. Yet in coaching, it's very different. You don't give any advice. So that was quite a shock to me, and something that took a lot of time for me to sort of work my head around and try and achieve things from a different perspective. Now, the main focus in coaching, one of the main focuses, is about listening, really actively listening to what people are saying, and that really makes a profound difference on building rapport and building up that connection so that the client can really open up to you. Um, Now, one thing that's surprising is that in schools and education, we're taught a lot about reading, writing, and speaking, but we're not really taught how to listen effectively, which is why this tends to be something that people often struggle with because they've never really learned it. And that's why there's a lot of breakdowns in communications because people don't really listen to each other. They're really just sort of waiting until they can get to have their say. So I think that that's something that I've really learned how to listen really well when you're engaging with somebody. Um, Now, one technique that I've used a lot during my coaching sessions is really just listening and then repeating back or paraphrasing what the person has said to me. And I found that when you use a person's own words and you're actually saying back what they've just told you, that really builds rapport because they understand that you've listened to them and you're really in line with what's going on for them and what they're thinking about, and that's something I found that was really powerful. And even as a lawyer, listening is really important because unfortunately sometimes you have to give advice that clients don't want to hear. But I often find that if you really do listen to the client and take on board what they've said, what their concerns are, what points they want you to take account of, and you repeat those back to them, quite often, even if you're giving the same advice, they'll take it a lot better compared with if you haven't listened to them at all. Because people want to know that you've listened to them, you've taken account of what they've had to say. It may be that they're still not happy with the advice or what your suggestions are, but it doesn't make a big difference if they realise at least that you've listened to them and you've at least had the respect to sort of hear them out and take things from their perspective. Um, and another thing that we have in law as well is that the courts very much encourage people to reach agreements themselves between themselves and then agree cases rather than it to go to court and for the judge to then have to make a decision. Because the fact is, human nature is such that if we have reached a decision ourselves to do something or not do something, we're far more likely to follow through with that compared with being told what to do. So a judge would much rather prefer the parties to reach an agreement which they're more likely to follow so that the case doesn't come back to court compared with the judge having to make a decision which is then more likely to be breached, and then the case will then come back to court, and then the dispute just continues. So for me, this is really summarized well in one of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I think that's really important because although technology changes, the way we communicate changes with time, I think the essence of human nature remains the same. So people always want to be heard and listened to, and they'll want to know that other people engaging with them have actually listened to them and understood where they're coming from. So those are my main reflections on having qualified as a life coach, and I think those are the main things really. Sometimes it's best, giving advice has its place, but sometimes it's best to hold back on any advice or not give advice unless you're asked to give it, and just listen to people and just show them that you understand where they're coming from, and hopefully good things will come from that. Anyway, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did like it, please do give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.